Hello, my friend, and welcome to the Phillip Mason Show, where acquiring wisdom is king, learning is home-centered and lifelong, resulting in great decisions in our education, career, and entrepreneurial path. I'm your host, Phillip Mason, and I am delighted to have this time with you today here in episode number 10. In this episode today, we're going to talk about Doug McMillon. In January, Doug McMillon stepped down from his role as CEO of Walmart. This is one of the biggest companies in the world. He's been doing this for 12 years now. I'm just kind of give you an idea of size. Walmart, in terms of revenue, is almost about $700 billion. And the number of employees right now, there's between 1 and 2.3 million employees. So the level of responsibility is just absolutely staggering with Walmart. It is the biggest company in the world in terms of revenue and also in number of employees. And as far as market capitalization, it's the biggest retailer on the planet without question. So I believe that Doug McMillon is something extra special. I think he is a man of wisdom. And I believe that he'll go down in history as one of the most influential business leaders of the 21st century. And I say that not just because of his business accomplishments, but also because of his exceptional wisdom. And I think he's a role model for business leaders on how to exercise humility and exercise good judgment and exercise wisdom in their decisions as they lead massive companies. We're in an era of huge companies, and we need really good, wise leaders. I'm going to talk about some reasons here. I have roughly about 12 reasons I want to go through and talk about why Doug McMillon, I believe, is a very wise man, very great leader. So my first reason for why Doug McMillon is a very wise person is rather a personal one. I've been living in the same neck of the woods as Doug McMillon. And so I've had the opportunity to interact with a lot of Walmart associates and a lot of Walmart leaders. I've heard a lot of different Walmart leaders speak and talk about their experience working at Walmart over the years. And in almost every single case, these leaders who have ever either worked with him or worked for him have all spoken extremely highly of Doug McMillon as a leader, but also as a person. He's just a very good person. And I've never heard anyone say anything negative about him. Everybody loves him. So for me, that's just really good concrete evidence that he's a man of wisdom. Number two here, to kind of put things in perspective here, Doug McMillon turned around a limping giant. Big companies are very difficult to turn around. It's not easy. Walmart, when he took over, was a limping giant, and they were not coping well with the threats from Amazon. Amazon was eating their lunch. E-commerce was tearing up their store business, and it was really kind of a nightmare type situation. Walmart's e-commerce was something of a joke. It was very hard to use, not good results, wasn't a good shopping experience, and that whole department was really struggling. In the stores, supercenter stores, morale was very low. Associates oftentimes were very confused on where things were at. There was so much inventory in the back room, it was impossible for them to find stuff. And morale was very, very low in the stores. Walmart just was a huge company, just had a lot of complexities, a lot of systems, and it was just very difficult for employees to get things done and to know where things were at and to be able to understand how everything worked together in order to be able to serve the customer. So it's a very perplexing situation. So one of the things that Doug did really well is he actually simplified Walmart in a lot of different ways and made certain things just very crystal clear about this is the direction we're going in and this is where we're heading. Now, kind of help put some perspective on this a little bit. Walmart's total revenue growth for the fiscal year 2025 was just over 5%, which for a massive company is really great. If you're doing 3% or more, you're in a good spot. When Doug McMillon arrived at Walmart, to kind of put things into clear perspective here, 12 years ago, 11 years ago, when he was at Walmart, they were right around 1.5, 1.6% year over year revenue growth. And so they were just barely hanging on, just barely making it. But now they're at 5% just this past year. So, and also it kind of helps to understand with the global e-commerce, Walmart's e-commerce is certainly a leader today by far, especially in retail. So e-commerce, they're right now, this past year, year over year, they had almost 21% growth, which is tremendous. Their profitability has increased too. So for income growth, they reached almost 9% year over year. So that means that their profitability is increasing relative to the amount of sales that they've had, which is really, as a business leader, what you want to do is increase that profitability, because then that allows you to grow the company more, allows you to give more back to your stakeholders. The other thing that's really interesting is the adjusted earnings per share. So earnings per share for those that own Walmart stock, this last year rose about 13% year over year. So really great growth, just really super strong. Doug McMillon is stepping away. Walmart's in fantastic shape right now. And of course, Walmart will continue to improve and get better. But from what it used to be to what it is now, it's really kind of a night and day difference. Okay. I think that kind of gives you an idea of where we're at here, and just the tremendous work that Doug McMillon has done at Walmart. So number 3, Doug McMillon is a very wise man, because he is unafraid to do the right thing, and he's always looking to do the right thing. One of the things that he did very early on is he wanted to do right by Walmart store associates. So one of the things he came in is he went into the stores and he listened to the employees and just made himself available. And he says, what would improve the situation here? And one of the things they came back and says, we don't hardly make anything. It's really hard to subsist off of our pay, and we need higher pay. He said, okay. And he said, well, what else? Well, he says, well, our schedules are all messed up. It's hard for us to get the scheduling that we need so that we can get the hours that we need to make an income. And he said, okay. And they also said, we have an assistant store manager and we have a store manager, but we need department managers or department assistant managers to help keep things better organized. And so we know where things are out, and there's better direction and coordination between different store departments, and in just directly helping customers when they come into a department. And Doug said, okay, and he ended up doing all those things for them. He made all those changes, and it was the right thing to do. And so Walmart store associates, their confidence went up tremendously because of the efforts that Doug put into place and changed their situation, so that workers, when they came into the stores, they were very confident about how they could help an employee, about when they were going to be scheduled, that they were going to make a decent paycheck, all sorts of things like that. Really raised their confidence. Okay, so moving on to reason number 4. One of the things that really stands out to me about Doug is how humble he is. He's a very humble man. In interviews, if you watch him, he's not boastful. You can tell he's not prideful. He does take satisfaction and pleasure in the work that he does, certainly. But he doesn't try to promote himself or make himself look really great. He always directs praise to the Walmart store associates or to his colleagues, whatever the situation may be, which is very admirable. There's actually a really great Wall Street Journal interview that was done here just recently as he retired. And in that video, he actually introduces himself as a Walmart associate. He doesn't introduce himself as the CEO, but he introduces himself as, I'm a Walmart associate, which I think is beautiful. And that's the way it should be. He's with his people, and yes, he's a leader, but he's with them and they're with him. And so they're working as a team together, which is a beautiful thing. Okay, so moving on to another reason here, number 5, I think it's really remarkable that he is still married. Now, most CEOs struggle in the marriage department, but from what I can tell, it seems like Doug McMillon's always been happily married and that things have gone well, just from my perspective. And here he is, retired. He's had a phenomenal career, but he's still married. From best I can tell, his wife loves him and respects him. And most CEOs a lot of times struggle in the marriage department. A lot of CEOs get divorced because the stress and strain of work, and there's so much time away from home, that relationship oftentimes crumbles and falls apart. Sometimes there's infidelity involved, just so much time away from home. But Doug McMillon seems to have maintained his integrity and kept his marriage vows very well. And so that's very impressive and definitely an indicator of someone who's very wise. Okay, and then moving on to my 6th reason here. Doug also has his family intact. He has his children. His children love him and respect him. And he's been a good family man through his whole time at Walmart. I think that's just a very powerful, convincing reason that the people that are most important to him still love him, still care about him. And he's treated them with love and respect, even though he's had an incredibly demanding job that requires a tremendous amount of time away from home. He's done a phenomenal job keeping his family together. And I'm sure his family's kept him together too at times. All right. So, and then number 7 is kind of related to number 5 and number 6. These are all reasons why I think Doug McMillon is a very wise man. Doug is a good Christian. He honors God's commandments. He understands virtue, and he understands respect, and he understands that God can bless people. And so I'm sure there's been many times where he's pleaded for help from God to be able to be the best CEO you possibly can be. All right. So moving on here. So my reason number 8 is I've seen, because I'm in a similar community as Doug McMillon, I've seen how he's outreached to others, and he's used his wealth to bless others for good. I actually just had a recent experience where I went and visited a friend whose wife was in the hospital with some very serious health problems. Many parts of that hospital were made possible because of Doug McMillon and his wife donating of their resources. And our community is really in need of good medical care, good medical facilities. So that certainly has been a blessing for many people. Okay, so moving on to reason number 9 here. I've noticed that Doug is just very careful and thoughtful with his words. And when he speaks with good judgment. He always says the right thing. He always manages to say the right thing. And he's really kind of conditioned himself to reason carefully before opening his mouth. And some more evidence of this, that he is careful with his words, just the fact that, when he started out at 19, working in a Walmart store, and then rising up through all the ranks to becoming the CEO of Walmart, I think is proof that he has been very wise with his words, been very careful what he says and how he treats people, and is very thoughtful in his actions and his words. I mentioned that Wall Street Journal interview. If you go and watch that interview that he did as he was exiting Walmart, you can tell when he talks, he's very deliberate about what he says, and he's very careful about what he says. It's a great video to watch. I'll put a link to it in the comments. Okay, so number 10, moving on to another reason here. So Doug McMillon is a great decision maker, and perhaps that goes without saying. But I believe he has a special gift of discernment, which helps him to be very wise. He can see a situation, and he can see the wrong way to go and the right way to go. And it may not always be apparent to him right away, but it does as he investigates more and as he asks questions. He becomes a real genuine problem solver. And I think evidence of this we can see in Walmart. As they were starting out, he did some very key things, such as listening to the employees, finding out what their struggles were. And he realized that in a lot of things, Walmart had kind of lost track of who they were. Walmart had so many complexities that they'd lost the beauty and simplicity that Sam Walton had baked into Walmart. So he made this push for Walmart to get back to its roots, to get back to everyday low prices, to get back to valuing the associate who was capable of caring for the customer. He created the idea of memberships, letting people feel like they're part of Walmart and they get special perks and opportunities within the Walmart ecosystem to be able to have better experiences, to have better in-store experiences, to have better e-commerce experiences, to have groceries shipped directly to their house, to do quick pickups, to even have delivery service into your actual kitchen, into your refrigerator, actual groceries right into your kitchen, where associates come in through your garage and deliver groceries right to your kitchen. Literally the last few feet into your house, providing that level of service. Those kind of changes I think were very instrumental in helping people realize that Walmart was trying to do the best that they could to make their life easier, even though they were very busy. Another thing that he did that I think is kind of demonstrates that he's a great decision maker and a great problem solver is he realized that the associates needed more training and more education. They also needed a clear career path that would allow them to grow and develop. He made sure that there was really clear steps that people could take if they worked their way up through the stores to where they could eventually become a store manager. So they actually created like a Walmart university where associates could go and they could study and learn more about what it meant to be a Walmart associate, a Walmart leader, a Walmart manager. And I think that made a huge difference in the overall culture of the company. And people really felt vested in Walmart at that point and were really committed to Walmart as a career. And that really helped centers to be able to overcome the drag that they were experiencing financially. And people were more excited to go in Walmarts because they were better run and because the associates and managers were better educated by this Walmart University. And I think all of that made it a huge success. It's kind of interesting. Walmart store managers at the supercenters, those managers, oftentimes they make more money than what a doctor makes. So they're very highly paid retail professionals. And, doctors are some of the highest paid professionals in our society. But a lot of times a Walmart store manager can make as much as a doctor or more than a doctor, just depending on how well they run their store. When you have a situation like that, employees and managers become highly motivated when they're well taken care of. And it makes a big difference. I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. Okay, we're on to my final reason now. Thank you for hanging with me. As I've been watching Doug McMillon over the years, as I see him today, he doesn't seem to have aged very much. And, he was a pretty young man when he became CEO. But the reality is, even though he's had this incredibly stressful job, just tremendous pressure, he's taking care of himself. He's aged very little. A lot of CEOs age very quickly because of the stress and strain of running a company. And I don't see that with Doug McMillon. I don't see the stress and strain on his face. Obviously, he's had very stressful times. He's probably had times where everything felt like it was falling apart. But in his wisdom, he's taking care of himself. He's taking care of his family. He's taking care of his Walmart family. And, he's a very happy man. He's leaving Walmart very happy, very grateful. It's probably an extremely emotional situation for him. But through all of it, he's kept himself composed, mentally, spiritually, physically, and he's in really great shape, which that can't be said for all CEOs. And I think there's a tremendous wisdom in having CEOs who know how to balance things and how to put things in proper perspective so they don't hit that wall of burnout, which happens to a lot of CEOs. They just get burned out and then they get used up and they're done. But I don't get that sense with Doug McMillon at all, that he's just getting started. And whatever he does next in life, he'll do it really well and be excellent at it. And he'll continue to spread his wisdom and be able to bless many people's lives. I'm really convinced of that. So I think Doug McMillon's an excellent example of a man of wisdom and who has had an absolutely amazing career. There's really just not too many people like him out there. He's very unique, very special person because of that, because of his wisdom, because of his performance, because of his leadership, just a really phenomenal person. My friend, thank you for visiting with me today and being with me on the podcast. I've really enjoyed our time together as we've talked about Doug McMillon and the phenomenal life that he's led and the great wisdom that he's shown throughout his career at Walmart. This has been a great session. Thanks for being here, and we'll catch you on the next episode.